Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Hunchback. Chapter 3 The Poet and the Gypsy Girl. Pierre was glad it was dusk when he left the great hall. The dark streets would hide him well as he tried to find a place to think quietly. Too upset to go back to his room, he walked the streets of the city. As the Poet Fool's parade came around him, Pierre turned and ran the other way. The streets were full of people, lightning firecrackers and sparklers, but the farther he walked, the emptier they became. The river bank was unpaved, and soon he was up to his ankles in mud. Pierre walked almost to the edge of the city. He looked across the river and saw a glimmer of light on the small island across the way. A giant firecracker exploded in Pierre's side. Even the ferrymen are celebrating, he thought. Might as well join them. At night, all he could see from the river was the jagged outline of the building that made up the city's main square. Rows of narrow, gloomy houses spread out in the other three directions. In the middle of the square sat the stocks. By the time Pierre reached the square, he was numb with cold. He had tried a shortcut, but had gotten caught in the windmills, which splashed him and soaked his cloak. A large crowd of people gathered and formed a circle around a bonfire, and Pierre quickly walked over it, but he couldn't get through. "Oh, these people," he said to himself. "Can't they see that my shoes are leaking and my cloak is soaking wet?" In fact, when he looked around, it seemed that many people didn't even get warm at all. They were just watching a girl dancing by the fire. Pierre could not decide if the girl was a fairy, angel, or a human being. She was not tall, but she looked it because she was so slim. She had dark hair, flashy dark eyes, and pale skin. The dance turned on an old carpet thrown under her feet. No one could take their eyes off her. Her arms were above her head as she moved in time with the tambourine. She spun and spun, her skirt swirled and swirled. As Pierre looked around, he saw thousands of faces. One man watched the girl very closely. He was older, with a few wisps of gray hair on his bald head. He was dressed like a priest with a long black cloak. Pierre watched this man while the girl danced. For some reason, the priest seemed familiar. "Jolly," the girl said, and a pretty little white goat stood up. "It's your turn." The girl and the goat did some tricks. Jolly showed the audience the date by banging her hoof on the tambourine. Then the girl asked Jolly what time it was. The goat answered with 7 strong kicks just as the clock in the square struck the exact time. "This is witchcraft," the priest called. The girl turned back to him and bowed as the crowd clapped. Then she and the goat continued their act. "The church would not be happy with this," the priest cried. The girl smiled and collected the coins that were offered to her. She stopped in front of Pierre and waited. Sweat fell from his brow. His fingers searched his empty pockets. "Get out of here, you dirty gypsy," called the voice of an old woman nearby. Scared, the girl turned from the awful woman. Pierre couldn't stop staring at her. She started singing, and the strange, sweet song filled his ears. The music brought tears to his eyes as he listened to her bird-like voice. The same woman yelled again, "I said be quiet, gypsy girl." The spell was broken, and Pierre's stomach grumbled. Just then, the Pope of Fools parade marched in the square. The long, snake-like line of people had grown since they had left the great hall. Quasimodo sat on a throne carried by the students, including Johannes and Jehan. All kinds of music came to the parade. Horns, tambourines, flute, and voices. The hunchback smiled at people lining the streets, feeling joy for the first time in his life. He didn't realize it was all a joke. Suddenly the priest pushed his way through the crowd and snatched the crown from Quasimodo's head. "Wait," Pierre said, "I know that man. It's Frollo, the Archdeacon of Notre Dame. What's he doing?" Quasimodo jumped out of the chair, and it crashed to the ground. Shrieks of terror came from the crowd. With one giant step, the hunchback was in front of the priest. He looked at him with one eye and fell to his knees. Frollo pulled off Quasimodo's silver cloak and threw his cardboard wand to the ground. The two spoke to each other with their hands, and they finished. Frollo tapped Quasimodo's shoulders. He stood up as straight as he could on his crooked legs and followed the priest. The students just stared at him. "That's my brother," Jehan whispered to Johannes, always spoiling the fun. Their pope was gone. The students wandered off in search of more entertainment. That was amazing, Pierre said. I've never seen a man jump like that. He landed so close to Claude Frollo that Quasimodo, the poet, shook his head. Now where shall I find supper? Pierre decided to follow the gypsy girl. Maybe she'll share her supper with me, he said, if I can find the courage to talk to her, that is. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.